Bucs fans, welcome to another episode of Fear the Bay, where your support makes all other 31 teams fear the Bay. I'm your host, Dana Morales, and before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to Mr. Bucs Nation, James Hill, who he recently shouted out my channel on YouTube and X, and I couldn't have been more appreciative and grateful for that act. For some reason, if you're subscribed to me but you're not subscribed to him, please go over to Mr. Bucs Nation, that YouTube channel, and go hit that subscribe button. Please hit the notification button for him. He uploads a lot of really good Buccaneers related content. He recently conducted a interview of Yaya Diaby, also JJ Roberts. He has a lot of really good Buccaneers player exclusive videos, interviews on his channel. Please go over and check him out. And to all the new subscribers that I've received over the last 2 episodes, welcome guys. I'm excited to have you along for the ride and hope to continue to grow this base as I try to provide you guys with the best Buccaneers content that I possibly can. What are we doing today? So today we're going to create the ultimate Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster from the Jason Licht era. So this is 2014 all the way to now. We're going to create a full 53-man roster. On offense, we're going to have 24 players. Defense, 26 players. Special teams, we have 1 for every position. I'm even going to include a coaching staff here. This will be a 2-part series, so this will be the first episode. I'm only going to focus on the offense. Next episode, I'll focus on defense and special teams. But let's start off with the coaching staff. So who would I have as my head coach, my offensive coordinator, my defensive coordinator, special teams coach? So for my head coach, the Buccaneers over the Jason Licht era, they've had numerous head coaches: Lovie Smith, Dirk Cutter, Bruce Arians. You've had now Todd Bowles, but my favorite out of all those Buccaneers coaches has been Bruce Arians. He has that no BS attitude. He's gonna coach you hard, love you later. That was his mantra. But Bruce Arians would be my head coach for this ultimate Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster that I'm gonna assemble here. We're gonna skip offensive coordinator because I'll come back to that in a minute. Defensive coordinator, of course, Todd Bowles, who helped the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, current head coach, and he helped the Tampa Bay Buccaneers really destroy the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl 55, and get Tampa its second Super Bowl in its history, now entering his 50th season. Special teams, I'll just go with the current special teams coordinator, Thomas McGahee. And then for offensive coordinator, so the Buccaneers have, and Todd Bowles, he has, the last 2 offensive coordinators, Dave Canales and Liam Cohen last year, have moved on to become head coaches in this league. Of course, Canales becoming the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and Cohen becoming the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I'm not going to go with any of those guys. I'm actually going to go with Thad Lewis, the quarterbacks coach, current quarterback coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And why? Well, Thad Lewis has been around since 2020. He's been around with Bruce Arians. He was here, of course, with Byron Leftwich when he was the offensive coordinator. He was an offensive assistant at the time. He's been around under Dave Canales. He's been around under Liam Cohen. Now he's under Josh Grizzard. So he has seen so many different offensive coordinators come along, learn so many different schemes. I believe he recently, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were searching for their next offensive coordinator, he was one of those internal candidates that the Buccaneers interviewed. So of course they see him also as a rising star, a potential future offensive coordinator. And because of this, this is a ultimate Buccaneers team where we're going to have players from 2014, 2020, 2025, and he's seen really all of the offensive schemes since 2020. I believe he was probably the best option to have here. Of course, he doesn't have any offensive coordinator play calling experience, but neither does Josh Grizzard. So I decided to go with Thad Lewis. I believe he will be a really good fit because he's seen all these players really since 2020 and all these offensive schemes. So on offense, we're going to have 2 quarterbacks. Of course, it's going to be full 53-man roster, but 24, which we're going to focus on today, is just going to be on offense. So we're going to have 2 quarterbacks. We're going to select 3 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and for every single offensive lineman position, left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle, we're going to have 2 spots that we're going to select there. So let's get started with the quarterback position. So when Jason Licht came in 2014, he had Josh McCown as his starting quarterback with Lovie Smith as the head coach. At the time, you also had Mike Lennon. That was Mike Evans' rookie year also. He had those two quarterbacks. Now, the next year, you had Jameis Winston come in as a first overall pick. A few years later on, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick. You had Ryan Griffin, who came over from the Saints as a backup QB3, never really saw the field. Of course, the big news, the big signing was Tom Brady coming in 2020. And that was one of the biggest off free agent signings of all time in NFL history. Of course, that leads right to a Super Bowl. You had his backup, Blaine Gabbert. A few years later, 2022, you got Kyle Trask. And now you have Baker Mayfield as the QB1. But who we're going to go with as the QB1 for our full 53-man roster, this one really can go Tom Brady or Baker Mayfield. But, of course, who is the greatest quarterback of all time, the GOAT? That is Tom Brady. So Tom Brady would be our QB1 here. So that is who we're going to select. So Tom Brady is our QB1. And we're going to go with two quarterbacks. So who's going to be our second quarterback? That would be, of course, Baker Mayfield. So we'll be set up. So whenever in this fictional scenario, whenever Tom Brady decides to hang up his cleats to retire, Baker Mayfield, just like he did, when he came in 2023, he'll be ready to take over and lead this Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. So Tom Brady, when he was in here, it was all, when he was in Tampa, it was just all focused on football. Now you see the cultural shift with Baker Mayfield, where guys are more loose. It feels like they're having a bit more fun. Not to say guys weren't having fun under the Brady era, but everybody knew their assignment when Brady was in charge. Everybody was there to solely win a Super Bowl. And not saying that Baker Mayfield's not here to win a Super Bowl, but the complete mindset was different under Brady. The tone, the attitude. Now with Baker Mayfield in, he's a guy with a lot of moxie. It feels like guys are loose. They have a lot of fun out there on the field. So those would be my QB1 and QB2. Now let's go to the running back position. We're going to select three running backs here. When Jason Licht came in, he had Doug Martin as a running back. He also had Charles Sims. He was a rookie at the time. He was good as a third down back. That was the combo that year in 2014, Doug Martin and Charles Sims. Doug Martin had a really good rookie year, really good 2015 also, where in both those seasons, his rookie year and in 2015, he had over 1,500 rushing yards. You had Bobby Rainey at the time, too. You had Mike James, I believe from the University of Miami. Peyton Barber, Jacquizz Rodgers. So doing research for this podcast episode, we're going to construct the ultimate Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. I pulled up the first, 2014, Jason Licht's first year, that depth chart, that roster, and it's just like a trip down memory lane for me. I'm going to read you guys out what a 2 for 14 roster looks like, who's going to receive the number 1 overall pick in the draft. You had Josh McCown as quarterback, Doug Martin as RB1, Mike James RB2, Charles Sims third down back. You had Brandon Myers as the tight end 1. You had Tim Wright, who was basically like a wide receiver out there as a tight end. You had the late Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, who was in his rookie year. I remember the two big games with him that rookie year was the Cleveland Browns game when he's going up against Johnny Manziel. I believe that Mike Lennon possibly started that game. And you had the Steelers game later on in the season. Louis Murphy from the University of Florida. You had at wide receiver, you had Robert Huron, Sky Dawson. At offensive tackle, left tackle, you had Anthony Collins, who that very first year in Jason Licht's first year as general manager, he signed a lot of big price tags, big ticket players, and they didn't work out for him. Anthony Collins being one of them. Michael Johnson was another one of those big money signings that didn't work out. He's good against the run, not against the pass. You had Otteron Werner from the Tennessee Titans. Those were the big signings in free agency, and I think all of them turned out to be bust for Jason Licht in his first year. It looked really bad when all of them didn't work out. But I think he learned that you don't win the offseason. You don't win, real football games by winning the offseason, by spending as much money as you can. You see every offseason, a lot of teams just spending as much money as they can, and the fan base is excited, but oftentimes it doesn't actually result into victories for the team. Who else do we have here? At left guard, you have Carl Nix. You have a center. You have Evan Dietrich Smith, but he's changed his name later on to Evan Smith. Patrick Omame at right guard. DeMar Dotson, who I really liked. He was probably the one good, besides Evan Smith, the one good offensive lineman for a while that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had. As a backup left tackle, you had Kevin Patfield from UCLA, 5th round pick. On the defensive side, you had Adrian Claiborne, Gerald McCoy, of course, who was the face of the franchise for many years. Akeem Hicks, Michael Johnson, who we talked about, Jonathan Casillas, Mason Foster at inside linebacker next to, well, at this point they were 4-3. So you had Lavonte David as the inside linebacker, the will. Antron Werner, Jonathan Banks, who turned out to be, he was a long, lengthy corner, but turned out to be a bust for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. DJ Moore. You had Mark Barron, who was kind of a tweener between safety and linebacker. I believe later on when he moved over to, went to the Rams, they turned him into a linebacker. And he had Deshaun Goldson from the 49ers. Connor Barth as the kicker. So this is just a trip down memory lane for me. I was, at this point, this is 2014, so I was 15 years old. I grew up watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, and this roster was this is what a 2-14 roster looks like. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers get rewarded, of course, with a first round pick after this, the first overall pick. And they decided to go with Jameis Winston. The top two picks, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, none of them end up working in the NFL as starters, both as backup quarterbacks now. But just fun to go back and see what these teams, because every year the NFL changes and every single team is different. So like this 2025, of course, this 2025 roster for the Buccaneers is going to be completely different than the roster that the Buccaneers had last year. Of course, they had a lot of key players, but of course we've signed players in free agency like Hassan Reddick. We draft players. We brought players in like Emeka Ibuka, Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish, and players leave in free agency also. So it's just fun to look back at some of these old teams and see how they were assembled. But again, with the running backs, you had, of course, Doug Martin, Charles Sims, Bobby Rainey, Mike James, Peyton Barber, Jacquizz Rodgers. You had Rojo, Ronald Jones. You had TJ Leonard Fournette. Playoff Lenny, then Super Bowl Lenny. You had LaShawn McCoy. He comes in from that point. He was with the Chiefs, I believe, beforehand, and then he came over to the Buccaneers. Kenjon Barner. Yeah, Dar Agunbale. If I'm saying that correctly, I haven't heard his name in such a long time, but I remember he went over to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe he still might be with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He filled in, I believe, a few years ago or last year as a kicker when they needed one, or a punter, I can't remember. Keyshawn Vaughn, Sneak Vaughn, Giovanni Bernard, who came over from the Cincinnati Bengals. Rachaad White, of course, from University of Arizona. Arizona State University. You had Chase Edmonds, Sean Tucker, Bucky Irving, the phenomenal rookie from Oregon, and now undrafted free agent DJ Williams. So who would be my ultimate, if I was to pick any of the three guys to construct my ultimate Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster from the Jason Licht era? You, of course, got to go with Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving would be possibly my RB1 here. I really like Bucky. Really shifty. Of course, he's a guy who's hard to take down. He can catch the ball, also goes run some routes. Not as good as, of course, as Rachaad White in the past game, but he is reliable there. Only downside with Bucky Irving is he's not, he's a willing blocker, but because he's a bit tinier, a bit smaller as a running back, it's a bit harder for him to pass block. So he'll be one of my running backs here. Let's see who else. Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny. The thing is, would he be able, if he's not the starter, would he be able to be a part of a three-headed monster, really? And I don't believe he can. We know in, I believe, the 2020 year, the Super Bowl year, Bruce Arians was ready to cut him. But they worked out, they talked about it, talked it over, and he was fine to finish out the season. He continued into playoffs, became playoff Lenny, and then won the Super Bowl Lenny. But I'm not going to include him here in the top three running backs I'm going to select because of the fact that I don't know if he can be a team player and be a part of a running back committee. but I know who can, and that is Rachaad White. So I'm going to pick Rachaad White as... We're back after some technical issues, but I'm going to pick Rachaad White to be my RB2. So we have Bucky Irving as our RB1, Rachaad White as our RB2. And then for my RB3, because his rookie season was really good. He had that breakout game against the Raiders, and his 2015 season was good, also 1,400 plus yards. If we're getting prime Doug Martin, then I want prime Doug Martin. I want prime Muscle Hamster to be on our team here. So we're going to go with Bucky Irving as our RB1, and this is going to be a three-headed monster. This would be the best, when you get them all in their prime, the best trio in this league at the running back position. Bucky Irving as my RB1, Rachaad White as my third down, RB2, and Doug Martin as our RB3. So you're really going to ride the hot hand. Whoever at that time has the hottest hand, you're going to give them the ball, and they're going to do really special things. I can guarantee you that here. At the wide receiver position, we're going to pick 6 wide receivers. So, of course, Mike Evans comes in 2014, and he is the first draft pick of Jason Licht. Who does he have as his mentor? It is Vincent Jackson, the late Vincent Jackson. On that roster in 2014, you also had Louis Murphy, who we talked about, Robert Huron. The next year, 2015, you got Russell Shepard, Deontay Dye. I like Deontay Dye. He's a good person. I remember meeting him as a kid in Buccaneers training camp. Nice guy. Adam Humphries. 2017, you got Chris Godwin coming in as a rookie. Freddie Martino, Bernard Reddy. You had Deshaun Jackson in that 2018 year. So it was Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Deshaun Jackson. Brashad Perryman, Justin Watson, Scotty Miller. Again, this is all just a trip down memory lane for Bucs fans. Antonio Brown in that 2020 season. Insane that we were to acquire Antonio Brown, but we all know how that ended with him quitting on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that game against the New York Jets, and the Buccaneers still find a way to go out there and win. With Cyril Grayson making the clutch catch at the end of the game to win for the Buccaneers. Jaden Mickens, Tyler Johnson, who was really clutch for the Buccaneers during that playoff run and ultimately that Super Bowl run. Russell Gage, who was always injured for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We never really got to see him on the field. But he probably, if he would have stayed healthy, would have been probably a really good signing for the Buccaneers. You got Jalen Darden, who was a late round draft pick in 2022. Raheem Jarrett, Trey Palmer, who is still on this team, is a speedster. Devin Tompkins, who the Buccaneers released during the Dave Canales time period. Jalen McMillan, or after the Dave Canales time period. Jalen McMillan from the University of Washington. You got Sterling Shepard, Cameron Johnson, Tanner Canoe. All right, so who are going to be my 6 wide receivers that we're going to assemble this roster with? Wide receiver 1, of course, is going to be Mike Evans. I don't think that even is a question. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He is our wide receiver 1, future Hall of Famer. So we'll do Mike Evans on one side, and how about we do Vincent Jackson on the other side? Just like when he came in as a rookie, we're gonna get prime Vincent Jackson. So Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans in the slot. Of course, we're going to have Chris Godwin, who is a phenomenal wide receiver, really good slot wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. Willing blocker, does everything you need to do, all the dirty work for this offense. So we have our top 3 wide receivers already: Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson, and Chris Godwin. Now, I forgot to mention, of course, the rookies that the Buccaneers brought in. Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson. Both of those guys already look polished, look really good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Emeka Egbuka already knows all the wide receiver positions for this offense. If you heard the mini camp press conferences. But we have our top 3 wide receivers: Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. We have some really good wide receivers on this list too. Of course, I mentioned Deshaun Jackson and Antonio Brown. The thing with them is, like, Jason Licht puts character. He regards character as a really high, really important attribute. Character is more important. Character over talent, but guys still need to be talented. So Antonio Brown, his host show, I wouldn't put with his whole, leave, quitting on the team, that whole debacle. I wouldn't include him in this, ultimate 53-man roster, because he will be an unreliable player to have on your roster. And Deshaun Jackson, I'm not going to include him because if he's not receiving the ball, there's going to be a lot of good wide receivers in that room. If he's not receiving the ball, how is he going to react? Is he going to have a locker room outburst? If you remember in that, in that 2018 year, the entire year on deep balls, Jameis Winston kept missing. He kept overthrowing him, sometimes underthrowing him. And then I forgot what happened. I can't remember if Winston was suspended. I believe he might have been suspended or injured. But Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in and he's hitting Deshaun Jackson on those deep balls. Deshaun Jackson has his best game of the season when Ryan Fitzpatrick was in. I believe that was against the Chicago Bears. And after that, you had this whole thing where, of course, Deshaun Jackson started to advocate for Ryan Fitzpatrick. It seemed like in the locker room, it felt like a divided locker room. So if he's not receiving the ball, will he be a team player and continue to work alongside and not be selfish, work alongside his peers? I don't know. So I'm not going to include him on this ultimate 53-man roster. But who else do we have? We got Scotty Miller, who's a burner. We got Russell Gage, Raheem Jarrett, Sterling Shepard, Cameron Johnson. I'm going to include Emeka Egbuka. He's a rookie. He hasn't proved anything, but I believe he's a very promising wide receiver. I'm excited to see how his career plays out. So I'm going to include, even though he's done nothing in this league, I'm going to put Emeka Egbuka on this list. He'll be our wide receiver 4 or 5 because I'm also going to put on this list Jalen McMillan, who had 8 touchdowns last year as a rookie. So far we have Mike Evans. We got Vincent Jackson, we got Chris Godwin, we got Emeka Egbuka, and we got Jalen McMillan. So we got 5 guys here so far. We just need 1 more. Let's see who we're going to select. We got Trey Palmer, burner. Scotty Miller, Scotty Miller came clutch, and Tom Brady knew how to hit him down deep down the field. So as our wide receiver 6, why not pick a speedster, have a speedster on this team to help out with the vertical threat? Because Bruce Arians, of course, that was a vertical passing scheme. We might see elements of a vertical passing scheme reemerge with Josh Grizzard as the new offensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. But we're gonna go with Scotty Miller. So we have our top 6 weapons on this offense, top 6 wide receiver weapons with Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, Emeka Egbuka, and Scotty Miller. So we got our 6 wide receivers. I feel very confident with those selections. So we're pretty good here. Tom Brady, or once he retires, in this case, Baker Mayfield has a lot of weapons at his disposal to work with. Tight end. So tight end, we have Cameron Brate. We got Brandon Myers. You have guys like Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Remember the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where you had Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson, and ASJ. It didn't work out. More of one of those things that Jason Licht talks about, where you don't miss on guys necessarily. He doesn't miss on guys in terms of talent. Where it comes out to is most of the times the Buccaneers miss out on guys above the shoulders, and mentally, are they mature enough? ASJ had a DUI during his time in Tampa. You have Luke Stalker, who was a reliable pass catcher for the Buccaneers. Alan Cross, if you remember Honcho during the Jameis Winston days. O.J. Howard, who had all the promise in the world. He was supposed to be, like the next Greg Olsen. It just never worked out. He went on to numerous other teams, including the Texans. Just never worked out for him in this league. I believe he's in college, working as a college football coach assistant right now, but I may be wrong. Tanner Hudson, who was always like a preseason star. You have, of course, Rob Gronkowski. No question there. We're going to add him already to this list. We're going to select 3 tight ends, and Rob Gronkowski, possibly him, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, some of the best tight ends of all time. O'Keefe. Now Kate Otten for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kyle Rudolph, when he was phenomenal with the Vikings for a long time, but when he came over to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, more of an aging veteran, didn't produce too much for the Buccaneers. Payne Durham now. You have guys like Devin Cope, David Wells, who were part of this roster. So Rob Gronkowski is going to be our tight end 1. A guy who's very underrated, and I really enjoyed him while he was here in Tampa Bay, was Cameron Brate. He was really a red zone threat for this team. He had a lot of touchdowns. If you go back and look at his stats, a lot of touchdowns for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially in the red zone. So Cameron Brate would be our tight end 2. So we have Rob Gronkowski as our tight end 1, Cameron Brate as our tight end 2. Now let's go with, I really like Cade Otton. So Cade Otton is going to be our tight end 3. He's entering a contract year. Will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers attempt to sign him early to prevent, this big explosion of the tight end market possibly next year in free agency? Or will they let him, play out this season and test free agency and see what his market looks like? But those would be our top 3 tight ends. Of course, you got, again, Rob Gronkowski as our tight end 1, Cameron Brate as our tight end 2. You got 2 real end zone threats there, red zone threats, and you have Cade Otton as our tight end 3. Really solid right there with those 3 guys, I believe. Left tackle. So when Jason Licht came in again in 2014, he signed Anthony Collins, I believe, from the Cincinnati Bengals as our left tackle. Didn't work out. Donovan Smith came in the next year, 2015, all the way to 2022. If you select, Donovan Smith had some ups and downs, a lot of holding penalties that really hurt his career, but he went over to the Kansas City Chiefs and also won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. Now he's a free agent. Tristan Wirfs, of course, the Buccaneers moved him over from right tackle to left tackle. Josh Wells, Brandon Walton, Charlie Heck, who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed now in free agency. This one's a no-brainer. Tristan Wirfs is possibly one of the greatest offensive linemen that, in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history, even including guys like Ali Marpet. So I'm going to pick him. He's going to be our starting left tackle. Of course, this is a no-brainer. And Donovan Smith. I'm going to have Donovan Smith as our backup left tackle. If you have to put him in the game, he's not a full liability. But those holding penalties in crucial moments, they can really hurt your team. You really shoot yourself in the foot when you have these undisciplined penalties. So Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith as our left tackles. Of course, Wirfs, the phenomenal left tackle, all-pro at left tackle for us starting. Left guard, you had Logan Mankins. The Buccaneers traded for Logan Mankins from the New England Patriots. I believe that was a 5th or 6th round pick. It was a late round pick. Guys like Kevin Panfield, Caleb Bennick from UCLA, I believe. Caleb Bennick. Is UCLA? I can't remember. Ali Marpet, who was phenomenal for Tampa Bay Buccaneers, retired a lot earlier than a lot of people expected. Has really slimmed down. Looks like he's in really great shape. Alex Kappa, Anthony Aaron Stinney. You had Nick Leverett. Good quality depth for the Buccaneers. Cody Mauch, Brent Bredesen. So some of these guys we're going to have over at the right guard as well. But I don't think you can pass up Ali Marpet as your starting left guard. He'll be right next to Tristan Wirfs at left tackle. So you have left tackle, you have Tristan Wirfs. Left guard, you have Ali Marpet. Really, really, really good offensive line there that we're constructing so far. And as our left guard, backup left guard, why not have Logan Mankins, the smart veteran, as our backup linebacker behind Ali Marpet? So we have, again, left tackle, we have Tristan Wirfs, Donovan Smith. Left guard, you have Ali Marpet and Logan Mankins. So we have a very solid, in my opinion, very solid offensive line we're constructing here. At center, so over the years, we've had Evan Dietrich Smith, Joe Hawley, who was from the Falcons. Ali Marpet played a little bit of time at center also. He played at center and guard. But since we already have him at left guard, I'm not going to include him here. Ryan Jensen, who came over from the Baltimore Ravens, became the highest paid center at the time. And really, really worked out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, he had that, I believe, knee injury where the cartilage wasn't, there. He had a lot of cartilage damage. But Ryan Jensen, one of the greatest free agent signings, probably behind Tom Brady for Jason Licht. Robert Hainsey, who was a lot of help to Graham Barton last year, and Graham Barton. So who are we going to pick here? I don't think it's a real question. Ryan Jensen should be our starting center. So you have Tristan Wirfs, Ali Marpet, and now Ryan Jensen at center. So he's going to be our center. He brings a very nasty attitude. He's going to play past the whistle. He brings that tough nose, very physical attitude and just overall attitude and just grit to this team. And as our backup center, we're going to have, and it sounds crazy to have Graham Barton as a backup center, but we're going to have him as our backup center. Sit behind Ryan Jensen, learn, develop a bit more. I believe he's going to be a very good center in this league who will be probably eventually become an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. But for right now, we're going to have him in this scenario as our backup center behind Ryan Jensen. So right guard, we have guys like Patrick Omameh. We have J.R. Sweezy. Again, Ali Marpet, but we have him at left guard. Caleb Benenoch. We have Alex Kappa, who went over to the Bengals and now is with the Raiders. Shaq Mason and Cody Mauch. So J.R. Sweezy, who came over from Seattle, never really worked out for the Buccaneers. He was, very injured at the time. Let's go with. I'm between Alex Kappa and Cody Mauch, but I'm gonna go with Cody Mauch. I believe he's not like the best offensive lineman in the world or anything like that, but he's a solid starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He will continue to develop. He's still a very young player. So I'm going to go with Cody Mauch. He's missing a few front teeth, but I'm going to go with Cody Mauch as our starting right guard and Alex Kappa as our backup right guard. So we have a very strong and a lot of depth on this offensive line so far. And then who's going to be our last offensive lineman that we select at right tackle? So we have guys like DeMar Dotson, who is a very good player for the Buccaneers, really the bright point on the offensive line for a few years. Gosder Chairless, who was a veteran at the time. Tristan Wirfs, he played right tackle, but we already have him at left tackle. Luke Gedeke and DJ Humphries. So this one for me is very easy. I really liked DeMar Dotson growing up. I liked watching him play on the offensive line. I remember in the preseason, the Buccaneers in 2015, when the Buccaneers were trying to protect Jameis Winston, they continued to have DeMar Dotson out there protecting Jameis Winston. It didn't end up working. I believe that was against the Minnesota Vikings, if I can recall, in the preseason. And he ended up tearing his ACL, was completely out for that 2015 season. But I'm going to have DeMar Dotson as our right tackle, and we're going to have not Tristan Wirfs, I'm sorry. Let's go with Luke Gedeke. Luke Gedeke, who also could be a starting offensive tackle. He's our starting right tackle. He could be, in this scenario, still a starting right tackle. It's up to debate. Do you want DeMar Dotson or Luke Gedeke? But I'm going to go with the big DeMar Dotson as our starting right tackle. So let's recap who we selected so far on the offensive side before our next episode number 2 of this series, where I'm constructing the ultimate 53-man roster, where we're going to select our defensive side of the ball and special teams as well. So again, for quarterback, we selected Tom Brady as our QB1 and Baker Mayfield as our QB2. For running back, we have Bucky Irving as our RB1, Rachaad White as our RB2, and the muscle hamster Doug Martin as our RB3. Wide receiver, of course, again, we got Mike Evans, Vincent Jackson in the slot. We got Chris Godwin. We also selected Jalen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka, both guys who I believe they're the future of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver core. There will be eventually, I believe, the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 of this team. And then as a wide receiver 6, we picked the speedster Scotty Miller, who can be a very good deep threat, and Tom Brady knew how to hit him when he was here for us. Tight end, we got Rob Gronkowski again as our tight end 1. Tight end 2 is going to be Cameron Brate, the red zone threat, and we have Cade Otton as our tight end 3. For left tackle, we selected Tristan Wirfs as our starter, Donovan Smith as our backup left tackle. At left guard, we have Ali Marpet, and we have Logan Mankins there. Ali Marpet is our starter, of course. At center, we have Ryan Jensen as our starter, and we have Graham Barton as our backup center. At right guard, we have Cody Mauch as our starter, Alex Kappa as our backup, and at right tackle, we have DeMar Dotson as our starting right tackle, and then our backup is going to be Luke Gedeke. So I had a lot of fun here constructing the offensive side of this Ultimate Buccaneers roster from the Jason Licht era. We even went over our coaching staff. thank you guys for watching. Thank you for all your support so far. Next week we'll do part 2, where again we're gonna tackle the defense and special teams. We're gonna have 26 defensive players, 3 special team players, our kicker, our punter, and our long snapper. I'm very excited to continue bringing you guys Buccaneers content. If you liked what you heard today, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Again, if you are subscribed to me and you're not subscribed to Mr. Bucs Nation, James Hill, please go over to his channel. He has a lot of really good interviews with Buccaneers players. Please go over to his channel and hit that subscribe button for him. And thank you guys for watching. I'm your host, Dana Morales, signing out. Bye-bye.